I'm Bernard Keevy. What I wanted to talk about was how, if we understand how the brain works and we understand what the new sales model is, there's a certain logic to how we should follow a process, if you like, in a sales interview. So it all starts with the most primitive part of the brain here. The reptilian brain is all about fear, fight and flight. So that's the bit of our brain that basically, if we see a salesperson or suspect a salesperson is trying to sell something to us, we run away. So the fear element is the first thing that affects the human brain, if you like. The second thing that then affects us is once we get over the fear, we tend to make decisions based on emotion. So we tend to go for things that we want, and they're not necessarily things that we need. But to sort of stick with the decision, if you like, the things that we want, we have to also be able to justify to ourselves that we need them. So there's two elements, but the one bit is the emotional bit. And then the final part of the brain, the neocortex, if you like, the sort of human bit. So this is the mammalian brain, this is reptilian, this is mammalian, this is the human cortex, the neocortex bit, the sort of processor that makes all of our decisions. And this is where we make decisions, and we make decisions based on emotion, on wants, but we need to be able to justify them logically based on convincing ourselves that we need whatever it is that we're buying. So therefore our sales approach needs to follow the same structure. So the first thing we have to do is to get rid of the fear factor, and we do this by establishing what's called rapport. And the way we establish rapport is, first of all, we need to get people to know, like and trust us. Now, I was in a network meeting this morning, and it was very interestingly argued that the like bit is not necessarily as important as the know and trust. But I think they're all important, particularly in the sales process. Brian Tracy says that people won't buy off you unless they see you as a friend. In other words, someone who has their best interest at heart. So I think know, like and trust is very important in the sales process. You've also got to establish credibility, because again the fear element basically won't be abolished unless they see your company and your product as being credible and you as credible. So you've got to dress the part, act the part, look the part, etc., etc. You've got to establish rapport by getting them to feel a relationship with you and feel they're part of whatever process is going on, which is why you need to be asking questions and then listening here to the answers. So questioning and listening. And the listening is really important. It's obviously, I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's a very sort of underappreciated element of the whole establishing rapport process. And the other ways you can get rid of fear here are through things like having a powerful guarantee and also powerful social proof. So testimonials, qualifications, any publicity that you've got. So all of those things there are designed to get you past first base, which is to get rid of the fear element in the prospect and to establish rapport. And once you've got rapport and you're asking the right sort of questions, you now go on to establish a need and a want. And basically what you really want and what you really need is that the two things should be the same. Because if someone wants one thing and they need something else, unless you can convince them that what you're selling meets both requirements, if you like, then things will unravel at some stage. So again, I was listening to, I think, The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy, and he gives the example of someone who's got a young family with plenty of children. What they need is a people carrier, but what they want is a sports car. Well, you've got to be able to convince them that the car you're selling, if you like, fulfills the functions of the people carrier, but has the things that will make them feel as if they possess a sports car. So acceleration and nice stereo, and all the things that would make them feel good about the purchase. So that's a reasonable example. Now, once you've established the want and the need, what you now need to do is establish that there's a gap between what they want, where they want to be, and where they are now. And the real trick is to widen that gap, to widen the discontent. And you do that again by asking the right sort of questions and listening to the answers. And listening's a whole skill in itself, which is probably worth a separate session. There's a book that came out many years ago called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham, and he talks about 4 types of questions. So the S stands for the situation, so that's where you would establish whether they've got something or not and whether they might want it, but that's only the situation. You then need to go on to the P, which is the problem, which is well, is it a concern to you that you haven't got this thing? And then you go on to the I, which is the implication, which is, well, just how much of a problem is it? How do you mean? Tell me more. Let's really quantify how much of an issue this is. So situation, problem, implication. And then the N stands for needs payoff, which is when you dig deep enough to be able to say, so how much would it actually be worth to you to actually solve this problem for you? So that's really the process that's going on here. We're asking the spin questions, if you like, to widen the gap of discontent as to where they are now and where they want to be. And once you've done that, you can then present your solution, if you like, as being the ideal way for them to close this gap, to get what they want, which also happens to be what they need, which is then, that's when features and benefits come in, because the benefits tell them what they want, and then the features tell them how to justify that they actually need these things, and you need both, so benefits and features. And then you move on to the logic, the decision process up here, which is if all of this has been satisfied, then there's no reason why they shouldn't go ahead and commit to buy from you. And that's why these elements, if you like, are in this proportion. The 40% for rapport and getting rid of fear, that's 40% of the overall sale. 30% is then establishing a want and a need. And once you've done that, 20% of the process is presenting, because you've done most of the hard work here. So here it's sort of yours to lose, if you like. And once you've presented and handled objections, managed objections, you then get to the close, which is only really worth 10% of the process, because if you've done all this properly, the close should more or less take care of itself. So if you bear in mind the 3 levels of the human brain and the 4 steps in the sales process, I think that just remembering that and picturing that in your mind will keep you on track in the sales process, because it tells you why you need to do these things in the order that you're doing them. So I hope you found that useful. If you wanted to find out how maybe you could use this with your clients, so perhaps you might be a CPA or an accountant or a coach, if you wanted to know how to use this sort of material with your clients, go to coachforprofit.com/Bernard. There's a short 8-minute video which talks about the system that we use, and there's a risk-free way of getting into that, but that's another day if you like. But if you fancy having a chat about any of this and think it might be of interest, then you can book a meeting time and we can have a short telephone conversation or whatever, a Zoom conversation. So, Bernard Keevy, and what I've been showing you today is how understanding how the human brain works and understanding the new sales model, which is this here, and understanding how they relate to each other will keep you on track in your sales meetings, because you'll be aware that you need to be doing these things in this order in order to follow that process, in order to follow this decision-making process in the prospect. I think that makes sense. I hope you do. Thank you very much for watching. I'm looking to recruit a business coach in order to help me handle existing global demand for business coaching services. And in particular, I'm looking for someone to run our Northeast US division. If you're interested in finding out more about this opportunity, which involves absolutely no financial risk or upfront investment, then go to coachforprofit.com/Bernard, watch a short 8-minute video, and if you think there's anything of interest there, then book a time and let's talk. And thank you very much for showing interest in this opportunity.